Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalam ala Anbiya wal Mursaleen Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma arna al-haqqa haqqan wa razaqna ittiba'ah wa arna al-batila batilan wa razaqna ijtinaba. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this another of our sittings. As it was advertised by the admins, we are going to give the Tafseer of Surah 102, Surah Takathur, and it means the piling up of dunya, to have a competition between yourselves to pile up the dunya. It's called Takathur. This surah was revealed in Mecca and it has the characteristics of the Meccan surahs. Please send out invites to everyone on your pass list so that they know the dars is started. In this surah, Allah Ta'ala said, A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhaakumut takathur, hatta zurtumul maqabir, Kalla sawfa ta'lamun, thumma kalla sawfa ta'lamun, Kalla law ta'lamuna ilma al-yaqeen, latarawunna al-jahim, Thumma latarawunnahum. Mutable for piling up worldly things diverts you from your deen until you visit the graves, until you die. Nay, you shall come to know. Again, nay, you shall come to know. Nay, if you knew with a sure knowledge the end result of piling up, you would not have been occupied yourselves in piling up the dunya. Verily, you shall see the blazing fire, which is the hellfire, and again, you shall see it with certainty of sight. Then on that day, you shall be asked about your delights, the pleasures of the flesh that you used to indulge in. By looking at the surah, you can tell that the tafsir might be long. A person who's given the tafsir of this surah can be tempted to make it a long tafsir, because the subject matter is so important. But I'll try to the best of my ability to be concise. And the reason why they're given the tafsir of the surah can be tempted to make it a very long tafsir, like 2-3 hours of speaking, is because it's an issue that we see every day in front of our very eyes. So this is an issue that we live with. We have family members who are not practicing Islam because they are too much occupied with the dunya. This is fiqh al-waqi' in front of your very eyes. So a person who's given the tafsir of the surah can be tempted to make it a very, very long tafsir, because it is so real, something that you live with on an everyday basis. To see family members who have apostated from the deen because they are tied up with the dunya. They have no time for Islam anymore. So Allah Ta'ala said, Alhaakumut takathur hatta zurtumul maqabir. Rivalry and competition between yourselves to pile up the dunya. It distracts you and takes you away from your deen. Until you visit the grave, then you'll come to know. So, in this world, we get carried away in competing with our neighbors in regards to wearing designer clothing, in regards to the cars that we earn, the cars that we buy, the cars we drive, and the type of house that we live in. We can become very conscious of our status. People are very conscious of their status. This is why there's a thing called designer clothing. And this is why there's a thing called luxury cars. And there are neighborhoods that are called posh neighborhoods. People can be very, very conscious about their status. And in life, when you propose to a girl, sometimes the first thing they look at is what car he drives, what neighborhood he lives in. If you apply for a job and your postcode, your address is in a ghetto, you'll never get the job. You have to lie and give another address if you want the job. You can't give your real address if you live in a ghetto, because by employing such person, the company will be at risk. What if the person is a thief? The person is from a bad neighborhood. That's how life is. We are conscious of our status and we compete with each other. It's called to keep up with the Joneses. So Allah Ta'ala said, while you are competing with each other to pile up the dunya, this competition between yourselves is such a stiff competition, it's so vicious and vigorous that you don't have any time for the deen anymore. أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرَ. You don't have any time for your deen anymore because you are too busy competing with your neighbor to pile up the dunya, the pomp and glitter of this world. And when you are competing with each other for dunya and to see who can have the bigger bank account and drive the better car, the luxury car, and have a bigger house and wear designer clothing and so on and so forth, the money for the competition. To win the competition, you're going to need money. And because you need the money for the competition, you refuse to pay zakah. Zakah becomes a burden on you. And whosoever is made rich by Allah and did not pay his zakah, his wealth will become black snakes entangled around his neck and biting him. And this is the explanation the Prophet gave to the ayah in which Allah Ta'ala said, وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ. Those who hoard up silver and gold and refuse to spend them in the path of Allah. I'm quoting to you from Surah Tawbah verse 34. وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ وَلَا يُنْفِقُونَهَا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَبَشِّرْهُمْ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Those who hoard up dhahab, gold and silver. Tawbah 34. Tawbah 34. Those who hoard up gold and silver, the zakah, the kanz means the zakah that you haven't paid, and refuse to spend them in the path of Allah, announce to them a painful doom, a painful torment, a painful punishment. The Prophet gave the tafsir of this ayah in a hadith. Those who were made wealthy and refused to pay the zakah, their wealth will become snakes, black snakes, entangled around their necks, biting them, and said, I am your wealth that you did not pay the zakah on. Whoever is made wealthy by Allah and does not pay the zakah of his wealth, then on the day of resurrection, his wealth will be made like bald-headed, poisonous snake with black spots over the eyes. The snake will encircle his neck and bite his cheeks and say, I am your wealth, I am your treasure, I am your kanz. The Arabic word kanz means the treasure. So why this man didn't pay his zakah? The answer is clear. أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرَ. Rivalry between yourselves to pile up the pomp and glitter of this world. It distracts you away from your deen. Until you visit the grave, then you'll come to know. This surah is talking about people who have lost the balance. Their love for the dunya caused them to lose their deen. We are not preaching poverty and tell you to avoid the dunya completely. So do not get me wrong. Do not misconstrue the tafsir. Because I'm giving the tafsir of Surah Al-Hakim Takathur, you assume I am preaching poverty. That is your misunderstanding. All I'm saying is, do not allow your love for the dunya to make you lose your deen. That's all I'm saying. Do not exaggerate in your love for the dunya to the extent where you forget about Allah. Because you are ummatan wasatan, the balanced nation. Allah said, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. Likewise, we have made you Muslims a balanced nation. Baqarah 143. We have made you Muslims a balanced nation, to be a witness over mankind, while he, the Messenger Muhammad, will be a witness over you. Therefore, because you are a balanced nation, you are not extremist in anything. You are not extreme in your love for deen to the extent where you spend all your time in the masjid making salah and making dhikr, reading Quran, and then you forget to work and feed your wife and children. That's the extremist in deen. And you are not an extremist in dunya. You spend all your time in your shop, your store, making money to the extent where you miss 50 Salatul Jum'ah in the masjid. You miss 50 Jum'ah because you are too busy in your store making money. That is the other extremist, who is on the opposite side of the spectrum. His love for dunya is extreme. So do not get the impression I'm preaching poverty. All I'm saying is, do not allow your love for dunya to make you lose your deen. That's all I'm saying. Because Allah said, Al-Hakum al-Takathur hatta zurtum al-Maqabir. The cousin of the Prophet, Ali ibn Abi Talib. Waraka, could you help the brother with the notes? Because I'm saying many things. The cousin of the Prophet, Ali ibn Abi Talib. Do you know what he said about this surah? Do you remember what Ali said in Surah Al-Hakathur? I will remind you. We, the companions, we used to doubt the punishment of the grave. But when Allah revealed Al-Hakim al-Takathur, not a single Sahaba doubted the punishment of the grave. So don't be a Mu'tazilite and claim there is no punishment in the grave. Ali narrated, we did not cease to doubt punishment in the grave till the surah was revealed, Al-Hakim al-Takathur hatta zurtum al-Maqabir. And how can you doubt the punishment of the grave when Allah used the word Maqabir, the graves? This is clear. The ayah is clear. Maqabir is the graves. How can you doubt the punishment of the grave when Allah used the word Maqabir in the surah? And the Hizb Tahrir, they doubt the punishment of the grave because they are the Neo-Mu'tazila. They are the Neo-Mu'tazila. Yes, that is the extreme in deen. A man who is always in the masjid praying and making dhikr and reading the Quran, and he forgot to work and feed his wife and children. According to Sharia law, if you did not feed your wife, she doesn't have to have sex with you. You have lost your right. It's called your conjugal rights because you didn't feed her. How can you want to go to bed with your wife and you didn't feed her? You can't make love on a hungry belly. When Omar saw the man in the masjid for Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Omar said to the man, who feeds you and your wife and children? The man said, my rich brother feeds me and my wife and children. Omar said, your rich brother is a better Muslim than you. Get out of the masjid, go and work, because manna and quail doesn't fall down from the skies anymore. That was for Bani Israel. In some hadith, Omar kicked him out of the masjid. Well, yeah. Omar said, manna and quail doesn't fall down from the skies anymore. Your rich brother is a better Muslim than you. Manna and quail doesn't fall from the skies anymore. That was for Bani Israel. And he kicked the man out of the masjid and said, go and work. So because you were called the balanced nation by Allah in Baqarah 143, you are not allowed to be an extremist in your love for the deen. That's called a spiritualist. And you are not allowed to be an extremist in your love for the dunya. That's called a materialist. You are in the middle between the two extremes. You love deen and dunya. Why do you love deen and dunya? Because Allah said, in the Quran in Surah 28, verse 77. Do not forget your portion of the dunya. Do not forget your portion of the dunya. وَلَا تَنْسَى نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. So for you to drive around in a proper car, a Mercedes-Benz, a Lexus, a Mercedes-Benz or a Lexus, don't feel guilty about it because you are not doing haram. And for you to live in a big house in a posh neighborhood, don't feel guilty about it. It's better to live in a posh neighborhood than to live in a ghetto. A ghetto is infested with criminals. You're better off living in a posh neighborhood than a ghetto. A ghetto is infested with criminals. And for you to be a successful businessman with shops, don't feel guilty about it. However, if your shops cause you to stop praying salah and stop going to the masjid for Salatul Jum'ah, then you should feel guilty about it. Why? Because Allah said, Alhaakum Takathur hatta zurtumul maqabir. Rivalry between yourselves to pile up the pomp and glitter of this world distracts you from your deen until you visit the grave, then you'll come to know. The only time you are allowed to feel guilty about your wealth is if you allow your wealth to make you lose your deen. Then you feel guilty. But if your wealth didn't take you away from your deen, you shouldn't feel guilty about your wealth. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was rich. He didn't feel guilty about his wealth. The other Caliph Uthman ibn Affan, he was rich and he didn't feel guilty about his wealth. Abdurrahman bin Auf, the other Sahaba who was promised paradise, from the 10 who were promised paradise, he was rich and he didn't feel guilty about his wealth. A rich man who is thankful is better than a poor man who is patient, because a patient man, all he has is sabr. So there is punishment in the grave, and the four great Imams established the notion, the creed, that there is punishment in the grave because of the statement of Ali ibn Abi Talib. We the Sahabas used to doubt the punishment of the grave, but when Allah revealed Al-Hakim al-Takathur, not a single Sahaba doubted the punishment of the grave, because the ayah is clear. Maqabir, that's the graves. Allah Ta'ala mentioned the graves in the surah because we have an examination to sit in the grave. The grave is an examination chamber. Do you follow? Your grave is an examination chamber, and the examiner is who? Munkar and Nakir. And there are three questions to answer. Who is your Lord? Who is your Prophet? And what is your religion? These questions are so important. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab wrote a book about it and called it Usul Thalatha, the three principles. Al-Usul Al-Thalatha, the three principles. Who is your Lord? Who is your Prophet? And what is your religion? You say, I'm sorry, Sheikh Faisal, these are three simple questions. That's what you think. There are three simple questions. For the Hindu, it's very difficult. How can a Hindu answer these questions? Impossible. For the Christian, these questions are very difficult because the Christians say Jesus is Lord. They even put on their churches, Jesus is Lord. I was in Nigeria and I flew in a plane from one city to the next, from Lagos to Abuja, the capital, and the plane hit an air pocket and wobbled. The Christians on the plane said, Lord Jesus. So if the plane had crashed, the last words would be on their mouth is Jesus is Lord. They don't realize that there is a thing called Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, that Allah is the only Lord. For a Jew, this question is very difficult. Who is your Lord? Who is your Prophet? And what's your religion? Because Jews don't accept Muhammad as a prophet. Even though they know him, the father is able to recognize his own kids. Just a minute, brothers and sisters, I'll be back. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Your grave is an examination chamber, and you have to answer three questions. Who is your Lord? Who is your Prophet? And what's your religion? And the examiners are Munkar and Nakir. And when they ask you the question, if you can't answer, they'll hit you in your head with a hammer. and everyone will hear the person crying out in his grave except Ath-Thaqalain. The Arabic word Ath-Thaqalain means man and jinn. Why did Allah Ta'ala say, Al-Hakim Takathur hatta zurtum al-maqabir? Rivalry between yourselves distracts you from your deen, and when you visit the grave, then you'll come to realize that the dunya took you away from the deen, because there is punishment in the grave. And Allah Ta'ala said, Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr. I swear by the time, verily mankind is in a state of loss, except those who believe and work righteous deeds and encourage each other to practice the truth and encourage each other to have sabr. وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Imam Shafi said, if Allah had revealed this surah by itself in the Holy Quran, it would have been sufficient to guide us to the straight path. Imam Shafi. What did Imam Shafi say? If Allah had revealed this surah by itself in the Quran, Surah Asr, it would have been sufficient to guide us to the straight path. We all have an examination to sit, and the examination chamber is the grave, and we have 3 questions to answer. But the majority of people are not preparing themselves for that examination, because they don't know who is their Lord, they don't know who is their prophet, they don't know what's their religion. The Hindus don't know, the Jews don't know, the Christians don't know, the Buddhists don't know, the Sikh doesn't know how to answer these 3 questions. So when they sit the exam in the grave, they are going to fail the exam, because they did not prepare for the exam, and the law of nature says he who fails to prepare has got to be prepared to fail. That is the law of nature. And because of that, Allah said, Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr. By time, verily mankind is in a state of loss, because they need to sit their exam. The examination chamber is the grave. The examiner is Munkar and Nakir. And there are 3 questions: who's your Lord, who's your prophet, and what's your religion? They won't be able to answer these 3 questions because they are not preparing for their exam by embracing Islam and practicing the deen. And one of the laws of nature says what? He who fails to prepare has got to be prepared to fail. That is a law of nature. Even if you have a mathematics exam, a chemistry exam, a physics exam, a history exam, any exam whatsoever, if you didn't study for your exam, you're going to fail. As simple as that. So Ali Ibn Abi Talib said, we the companions of the Prophet used to doubt the punishment of the grave, but when Allah revealed the surah Al-Hakim Takathur hatta zurtum al-maqabir, not a single Sahaba doubted that there is punishment in the grave. Kalla sawfa ta'lamuna thumma kalla sawfa ta'lamun. Nay, you shall come to know. Again, you shall come to know. Kalla la ta'lamuna ilma al-yaqeen. If you knew with a sure knowledge the end result of piling up the things of this world and being occupied yourself with the dunya. So Allah is talking about the dunya again. If you know the end result of chasing the dunya, you would not lose the balance between your love for deen and love for dunya. How dreadful the grave is. If you know how dreadful the grave is, you would never allow the dunya to take you away from your deen. The grave is so dreadful. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, 70,000 angels attended his janazah. When he was buried, the Prophet said, if there should be any man who should escape the squeezing of the grave till their rib cage collide into each other, if there should be any man who would escape the squeezing of the grave, it should have been Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. But the grave squeezed him once and let him go, even though 70,000 angels attended his janazah. Bring me the hadith which I'm quoting. Abdullah ibn Umar reported, the Prophet said, this man, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, for whom the Arsh of Allah moved. When he died, the Arsh of Allah moved. The doors of heaven were opened for him. 70,000 angels participated in his janazah. his grave was compressed and later on was expanded for him. And then the Rasul buried a little boy and said his grave compressed him. The Prophet said, indeed the grave has a grip on people. If anyone was to escape from it, it would have been Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. Yet he was squeezed once and the grave is. So the believer prepares for the grave with righteous deeds. Use your good health to prepare for your sickness. Use your dunya to prepare for your hereafter. And use your life to prepare for your death. خُذْ مِنْ صِحَتِكْ لِمَرَضِكْ وَمِنْ حَيَاتِكْ لِمَوْتِكْ. So Allah is saying here in Surah Al-Hakim Takathur, كَلَّا لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ عِلْمَ الْيَقِينِ. If you knew how dreadful the grave is, you would never allow your dunya to make you lose your deen. You don't know when you are going to die. So why don't you start practicing your deen? Don't calculate and say, I'll practice when I'm 40. Who told you you're going to live until you're 40? Don't be calculative with the law, because you didn't sign a contract with the law that He'll allow you to live until you're 40. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to drink alcohol and chase girls, and when I'm 40, I'll come back to the deen. Don't be calculative. And I'm going to make Hajj, and Hajj will wipe out all my sins. Some people calculate like that. You don't know when death is going to knock on your door. So you have to start practicing even if you're young. Haven't you seen young people die? What makes you think only old people die? Haven't you seen young people die in car crash all the time? I've seen a girl in the UK, she was 14 and she had diabetes. 14-year-old with diabetes. I'm shocked. How can a 14-year-old have diabetes? I've seen that in the UK. What makes you think only old people die? And you are being calculative with the law. I'm going to have fun. Drink alcohol and chase girls and go to nightclubs. And when I'm 40, I'll go for Hajj, because the Prophet became a prophet when he was 40. Go for Hajj, and the Hajj will wipe out all my sins, and I'll come back to Islam and become pious. Don't be calculating. The brothers of Yusuf, they spoke like that. Let's kill Yusuf and then make Tawbah. Our father prefer Yusuf over us. Our father, he loves Yusuf and Binyamin more than us. Let's kill Yusuf and then we make Tawbah and become good people afterwards. Don't be calculative with Allah. You didn't sign a contract with Allah that you live until you're 40 or 50 or 60. So Allah said, if you had a clue how dreadful the grave is, you will never allow the dunya to make you lose your deen. And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the grave is one of the gardens of paradise or one of the pit of the hellfire. Bring me that hadith, I learned it from the lips of my sheikhs. Your grave is either, it is a roda min riyad al-jannah. It's either a roda, a garden from one of the gardens of paradise, or your grave is a pit from one of the pits of the hellfire. The Prophet said, I am afraid that you will stop burying your dead. If I didn't have the fear that you'll stop burying your dead, I would have prayed to Allah to make him, so that Allah will make you hear the people crying in their graves as they are punished in their graves. But because I am afraid you'll stop burying your dead, I didn't make that dua to Allah. Even animals can hear people being punished in their graves. Only man and jinn cannot hear. Man and jinn are called Athaqalain. There is no point in making the dunya take you away from your deen, because the Rasul said, لَوْ تَزْنَ الدُّنْيَا جِنَاحَ بَعُودَ مَا سَقَى كَافِرًا شَرْبَةَ مَاءٍ. If this dunya was valuable to the extent of a mosquito wing, he'll never give a kafir a cup of water to drink from it. If this dunya was valuable to the extent of a mosquito wing, he'll never give a kafir a cup of water to drink from it. And the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed by a dead sheep, and he asked the Sahaba, which one of you would like the sheep? He said, we don't want that sheep, not even if the sheep was alive. Not even if the sheep was alive, we would want it, because it looks deformed. Look at its ears. The Rasul said, that dead sheep you see by the roadside, the dunya in the sight of Allah is like that. People chase the dunya. The dunya in the sight of Allah is like that dead sheep that nobody wants. Can you find the hadith about the dead sheep? The Sahaba said, not even if the sheep was alive, we would want it. Look at the sheep. It looks deformed. Look at his ears. It looks deformed. The Rasul said the dunya is like that dead sheep. Yet people chase the dunya and cause the dunya to take them away from the deen. Everything in the dunya is cursed. Ad-dunya mal'una mal'una ma fiha illa thalatha. Everything in the dunya is cursed except three things. Dhikrullah, the remembrance of Allah, a scholar of Islam, and a student of that scholar. Jabir ibn Abdullah reported that the Messenger of Allah happened to walk through the bazaar coming from the side of Aliyah, and the people were on both sides. There he found a dead lamb with very short ears. He took hold of the ears and said, "Who amongst you would like to have this for 1 dirham? A dirham is a silver coin and dinar is a gold coin." They said, we do not like to have it even for less than that, as it is no use to us. He said, "Do you wish to have it for free? Free of cost?" They said, "By Allah, even if it were alive, we would not like to possess that, for there is a defect." Yes, that's what I recollect from the hadith. The sheep is deformed. There's a defect in it, as its ears is very short. Look at its ears, it's so short, it has a defect. Now it is dead also. So if we wouldn't want it when it's alive, how can we want it when it's dead? Thereupon the Messenger of Allah said, "By Allah, this dunya is more insignificant in the eyes of Allah, the sight of Allah, than this dead lamb in your eyes." Collected by Muslim, Sahih Muslim. Always remember this hadith which I quoted for you, that the dunya in the sight of Allah is more insignificant than this dead lamb, which no Sahaba wanted. They said, not even if it was alive, we don't want it because it is deformed. And Mike can hear me because my screen went funny. Okay, shukran. Abu Hurairah reported, the world with all that it contains is a curse except three things: the dhikrullah, that which please Allah, a scholar of Islam, and a student of that scholar. At-Tirmidhi. Okay, shukran for the hadith. The people who apostate from the deen because of the dunya, the bulk of them are found in Darul Harb, like Europe and America. That's where people apostate a lot for the dunya. And because of that, Ibn Hazm said in his book Al-Muhalla, if you invite a man to come and live in the Islamic State and he refused to go and live in Darul Harb, anybody who's able to kill him should kill him. The people who apostate a lot because the dunya destroyed them are those who are living in Darul Harb, especially Europe and America. And because of that, Ibn Hazm said, if a man was invited to come and live in the Islamic State and he refused to come and live in the Islamic State and he chose to go and live in Darul Harb, anybody who can kill him should kill him. Oh, this is a very long fatwa. Ibn Hazm states, whoever joins the land of war, Darul Harb, like Europe and America, the land of war and disbelief, of his own free will, and in defiance of whoever amongst the Muslims calls him to his side, which is the Islamic State, is by virtue of this act an apostate by all the laws of the apostasy in Islam. Whoever is able to kill him must do so. It's a long fatwa, I don't want to go into details. So if there is an Islamic State and the Muslims invite you to come and live with them, and you refuse to go and live with the Muslims, you prefer to go and live in Europe and America, not with the Muslims. Anybody who's able to kill him should kill him, because by doing so, by virtue of what he did, he became an apostate. Ibn Taymiyyah, in speaking about living among the kuffar in Darul Harb, Ibn Taymiyyah said, to do this is so dangerous. One day you're a Muslim, next day you're a munafiq. Today you're a Muslim, tomorrow you're a munafiq, because of living in an evil environment. Listen to Ibn Taymiyyah. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said, the state of a place reflects the state of a person. It is possible to be sometimes a Muslim, and at other times a disbeliever. A'udhu billah. Sometimes sincere, and at other times hypocritical, a munafiq. Sometimes good and pious. Thus a person becomes like the place of his abode. Do you know when you put water in a container, the water takes the shape of its container? The water has no shape of its own. The water takes the shape of its container. Likewise, when you live in a society, you take the shape of the society. If you live in an Islamic society, you become pious. If you live in Dar Harb, you become evil. You take the shape of your abode. This is what Ibn Taymiyyah is hereby telling you in this fatwa. Sometimes sincere, and at other times you become hypocritical. Sometimes good and pious, and at other times rotten and corrupted. Thus a person becomes like the place of his abode. This, therefore, the demand of disbelief, kufr, and profanity to one of faith and probity is an expression of repentance and of his turning away from the disobedience of Allah and perversion to belief and obedience. This is so until the day of resurrection. Majmu' Fatawa, volume 18, page 284. So we are speaking about the Tafseer al-Hakim al-Takathur. Rivalry and competition between yourselves takes you away from your deen, and when you visit the grave, you'll realize that the dunya destroys your deen. Ibn Taymiyyah is saying that when you live in a kafir society, a corrupt society, a society which is based on degeneracy and debauchery, it will destroy you. One day you're a Muslim, next day you're a kafir. One day you are sincere, next day you're a munafiq, munafiq.com. One day you are good, the next day you are corrupted. And by you leaving that land to go and live among the Muslims, that in itself is an act of tawbah. You can make tawbah. But you need to leave the land that you are living in and go to a righteous land. Because the land has corrupted you. The land that you are living in has corrupted you. So in order for your tawbah to be accepted, you need to leave that evil land and go to a righteous land. The land of piety, the land of taqwa. When he was going there, he died along the way. So the angel of the hellfire came to claim the body and said he belongs to the hellfire. The angel of mercy came to claim the body and said he belongs to paradise because he was going to make tawbah. Allah sent a third angel to measure where he's coming from and where he's going, and his body was closer to where he was going, the land of piety. So Allah said to the angel of mercy, the angel of paradise, you claim the body. Allah Ta'ala forgave him of killing 100 people just to make his intention to make tawbah. So you might leave your house to go to the masjid to pray Salatul Jum'ah, and you have a breakdown, your car broke down, and you miss Jum'ah. You get the barakah for Jum'ah just for making the effort, just for the intention. You get barakah for Jum'ah just for making your intention to perform Salatul Jum'ah. Because according to Islamic law, any man who makes his intention to do a good deed and he didn't do it, Allah writes it down as one good deed. And if you did it, Allah writes it down as 10 good deeds or 700 good deeds. And Mike can hear me because my screen went funny. Okay, shukran. Al-Hakim al-Takathur hatta zurtum al-Maqabir. Rivalry between yourselves to pile up the dunya takes you away from your deen until you visit the grave, then you shall come to know. If you want to hang on to your deen, you need to be in an Islamic environment. When you have milk and you don't want the milk to go off, you put the milk in the refrigerator. And when you have a believer and you don't want him to lose his faith, you put him in the Islamic State to preserve his faith. You have 6 sacred things, and only in the Islamic State these 6 sacred things are protected and safeguarded. What are these 6 sacred things? Your life, your wealth, your izzah, your honor, your aql, your lineage, and your deen. Your life, your wealth, your honor, your aql, your lineage, And the last, your deen. Only in the Islamic State, these 6 sacred things are protected and safeguarded. In Dar al-Harb, they want to destroy your deen. Many Muslim girls sleep with kuffar men in Dar al-Harb. Muslim boys become homosexuals, taking drugs. They've lost their deen. Only in the Islamic State, your deen is protected and safeguarded. And because of that, Ibn Hazm said, if the Islamic State is established and we invite a man to come and live among us in the Islamic State, and he rejected our invitation, and then he went to live in Dar Harb among the kuffar, anybody who's able to kill him should kill him, because what he did by itself is an act of apostasy. To choose to live among the kuffar when Sharia is established. A'udhu billah. Refusing to live in a society where you can hear the adhan 5 times a day, every day. To live in a land where you can't hear the adhan. Ibn Hazm said anybody who's able to kill him should kill him. Because he refused to live among us in the Islamic State, to go and live among the kuffar, the Crusaders and the Zionists, the Jews and the Christians, or whatever the case may be, the Hindus or the Buddhists or the Sikhs. لَتَرَوُنَّ الْجَحِيمِ, and you will see the blazing fire. The blazing fire is 70 times hotter than the fire you use to cook at home. And you shall see the blazing fire. ثُمَّ لَتَرَوُنَّهَا عَيْنَ الْيَقِينِ, and you will see the fire with your sight, with your eyes. ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ, and on that day you will be asked about all your pleasures. When we were doing the tafsir of Surah Al-Hakim Takathur in university, our Shaykh quoted a hadith. And today, by Allah's will, I'm going to quote the same hadith. What is the hadith the Shaykh quoted when he was explaining this surah for us in university? When the Sahabas migrated from Makkah to Medina, they migrated with poverty. The Rasul came out of his house hungry. Abu Bakr came out of his house hungry, hoping that one of the Ansars will invite them home and prepare for them lunch or dinner, whatever the case may be. Omar came out of his house hungry because they were immigrants. They migrated with one suit on their back. They went to the house of an Ansar, and when the Ansar came home, oh, you found the hadith, subhanallah. That was quick, you found the hadith. When the Ansar came home, he found the Prophet at home, Abu Bakr and Umar. He said, subhanallah, nobody in the dunya is better than me today. I have the Prophet, I have Abu Bakr, I have Umar as guest. Nobody. And he was very, very happy. So he killed a sheep and prepared the sheep for the Prophet, Abu Bakr and Umar, and fed them. And they were full. The Prophet said, this meal that you have just taken, you'll be asked about it on the day of judgment. You left your house hungry, and you came to the house of a Muslim who fed you until you were filled. This is from the bounties of Allah. On judgment day, you'll be asked about this meal that you have just had. And the Shaykh quoted, كَلَّا لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. On that day, you'll be asked about all the na'im. What is na'im? Pleasures of the flesh. So, eating a meal is pleasure of the flesh. The Arabic word na'im means pleasures of the flesh. To drink a delicious drink is na'im. To eat a delicious meal is na'im. So, the food you are eating, is it halal? And the drink that you are drinking, is it halal? Because if you eat haram food and drink haram drink, you have no salah for 40 days and 40 nights if you drink alcohol. Many of you ask the question, why my dua isn't answered? Don't you know why your dua isn't answered? Your dua isn't answered because you're eating haram food. One of the things that I admire about the Asian community, the Pakistanis, the Indian Muslims, the Pakistan Muslims, and the Bengali Muslims, they don't eat haram food. That's one of the things I admire about the Asian community. They don't eat haram food. They are very, very careful about what they eat. I've been to over 30 countries preaching Islam, and I found that with all the Asian Muslims, they don't eat haram food. They are very, very careful what they eat. And they would never use the pots of kuffar. They would never use the pots of kuffar to prepare their meals. Because the kuffar, they cook pork in their pots. I've never met one Indian Muslim in my life who would use the pot of kuffar to prepare their meals. Because kuffar use their pots to cook pork. That's what I admire about the Asian Muslims. They don't eat haram. They are very, very careful what they consume. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was given milk to drink. And he asked the man where he got the money from to buy the milk. The man said, I used to practice soothsaying and fortune tellings and palm readings. And I use the money that people pay me to buy the milk. Omar stuck his finger in his throat and vomited the milk out. Why? Because Allah Ta'ala said, Kalla latus'alunna yawma idhin 'anil na'im. On Judgment Day, on the day of resurrection, when you stand in front of Allah at Hisab, every morsel of food that you eat, every drink that you consume, every woman you slept with, every man you slept with, all these things are called pleasures of the flesh. You will have to give account for that on the day of judgment. Kalla latus'alunna yawma idhin 'anil na'im. And because of that, Omar stuck his finger, not Omar, Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr stuck his finger in his throat and vomited the milk because he doesn't want to give account for that on the day of judgment. When you stand in front of Allah at Hisab, you have to give account for every morsel of food that you consume. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm back if you can hear me. Somebody PM me to say that it was Omar who vomited the milk. I heard it was Abu Bakr. So I'm saying to Authentic 285, bring me the author. Was it Abu Bakr or Omar who stuck his finger in his throat to vomit the milk? Because the man, he earned his money by soothsaying, fortune telling, and divining. He was a diviner. Soothsaying, fortune telling. My recollection, it was Abu Bakr who vomited the milk. Now he's telling me it's Omar. I don't want to think I'm becoming senile and start mix up the hadiths. And by PMing me, it jammed up my sound system. By PMing me, and Mike can hear me? It jammed up my sound system. Okay. The admin found the hadith. Bukhari relates that Aisha once said, Abu Bakr once said, Abu Bakr used to have a servant boy who would collect the kharaj, a tax paid by non-Muslims on landed property in return for protection of the Islamic state for him. And Abu Bakr would buy food for himself out of this money. One day, however, the boy brought something and Abu Bakr ate it. Do you know what that was? The boy asked Abu Bakr, and Abu Bakr said, what? In the Jahiliyyah, he said, I was a soothsayer, something which in fact I did. I did not know how to do, but I deceived a man. He deceived a man who met me just now and gave me what you ate. So the man paid him for his soothsaying, his fortune telling. And Abu Bakr put his finger into his throat and vomited all that was in his stomach. So it was Abu Bakr who vomited the milk. Now the person who PM'd me to say it wasn't Abu Bakr, it was Omar, he's not even in the room right now. He left the room. And by PM'ing me, he jammed up my sound system and caused me to have to reboot my computer. He's telling me that it was Omar who vomited the milk, not Abu Bakr. I hate to think that I'm becoming senile and start to mix up the names of the Sahabas. I don't mind being corrected if I make a mistake, but this time I was right. It was Abu Bakr who vomited the milk, not Omar. It wasn't two different. The person made a mistake. He got his facts wrong. People are desperate to correct me. Even when I'm right, they still want to correct me. Why are they so desperate? I graduated from university in 1992, and I still remember all the lectures I had with my sheikhs. At least 99% of them. And each tafsir that I'm given, I remember how the sheikhs gave the tafsir. Every single tafsir. According to Zayd ibn Aslam, maybe there's another hadith about it. According to Zayd ibn Aslam, Omar ibn al-Khattab once drank some milk which he liked. Where did you get this milk? He asked the man who had given it to him. And he replied that he had been on his way to a well when he passed some animals which had been given in charity, and some people who were milking them, he had taken some of the milk in the water skin and gone away. Hearing this, Omar put his finger in his throat and vomited it up. Okay, the brother who came in the room was correct. The hadith has two versions. Abu Bakr vomited the milk and Omar vomited the milk. So the brother who came into the room, he was correct, but he was thinking about another version of the hadith, that it was two Sahabas who vomited milk that was given to them because it was from a haram source. Abu Bakr did it and Omar did it. But the one that the sheikhs quoted to me in the university was the Abu Bakr one. So I was going by that one, because that was the one the sheikhs quoted to me in the university, that you're not allowed to eat haram food or drink haram drink, because on Judgment Day you'll be asked about all your delights, your na'im. And the sheikhs quoted the hadith when they were explaining to me, to the class, that is the Tafseer of Surah Al-Hakim Takathur. All the delights that you indulge in, delicious food, delicious drink, pretty women that you slept with, all these pleasures of the flesh. On Judgment Day, you have to give account. And on Judgment Day, your limbs will testify against you in regards to the haram things you used to dabble in. I repeat, Surah Yasin, verse 65. Surah Yasin, verse 65. All your limbs will testify against you on Judgment Day in regards to the haram activities you used to indulge in. So Allah said in Yasin 65, Al-yawma nakhtimu ala afwahim wa tukallimuna aydihim wa tashhar arjuluhum bima kanu yaksibun. This day we shall seal up their mouths, and their hands will speak to us, and their legs will bear witness to what they used to do, the haram they used to perpetrate. And the scholars say the first limb to testify against you will be the left leg. According to the scholars of Aqidah and Fiqh, not Fiqh, Aqidah and Tafsir, the first limb to testify against you on Judgment Day will be the left leg. Many people ask the question why my dua isn't answered, and I keep asking Allah for things, and I don't get it. One of the reasons your dua isn't answered is because you eat haram food or drink haram drink. If you drink alcohol for 40 days, you have no salah. If you drink alcohol for 40 days, you have no salah. Okay, bring me that hadith, authentic Tawheed 5. Anybody who drinks alcohol, they have no salah for 40 days. And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam spoke about a man. ثم ذكر الرجل يطيل السفر أشعث أغبر يمد يديه إلى السماء يا رب يا رب ومطعمه حرام ومشربه حرام وملبسه حرام وغذي بالحرام فأن يستجاب له. Okay, you found the hadith. Those who drink alcohol for 40 days, they have no salah. Then bring me the hadith of hadith number 10 from the 40 hadith. The man who was traveling disheveled, a long journey, he raised his hands to the skies. He said, Ya Rab, my Lord, my Lord. While his food was haram, his drink was haram, his clothing was haram, and he was nourished with haram. فَأَنَّ يُسْتَجَابَ لَهُ. How on earth can he be answered? On Judgment Day, there is a stage called the Hisab. The first stage is called Al-Ba'th, the resurrection. The second stage is called Al-Hawd, the drinking from the lake fount. The third stage is called the Hisab, when you have to give account to Allah. Your money, how you earn it and how you spend it. Your knowledge, what did you use your knowledge for? Did you use your knowledge to guide the Ummah, or did you use your knowledge to cement the thrones of the apostate leaders? What did you use your Islamic knowledge for? Your body, how did you exhaust your body? Did you exhaust your body with halal, or did you exhaust your body with haram? This is called the reckoning, the Hisab, the reckoning. The fourth stage is the Mizan, in which your deeds will be weighed. And the fifth stage is called the Sirat, a bridge placed over the hellfire. Some people cross the bridge of Sirat with the speed of lightning, and others will cross it galloping, and so on and so forth. If a believer falls over the bridge into the hellfire, he will come out of the hellfire with Shafa', the intercession of Muhammad. But if a kafir should fall over into the hellfire, the kafir will abide in the hellfire forever and ever. Brothers and sisters, this is a tafsir of Surah Al-Hakim Takathur. I'll take 3 questions before I leave. This is the tafsir of Surah Al-Hakim Takathur. If there are no questions, we'll close the door. Please PM. Yeah, if there are no questions, the word is Shafa'ah, intercession. Those who, I don't have any questions. Those who go to the, if a believer falls over the bridge into the fire, he will come out with Shafa'ah, intercession of Muhammad. If a kafir falls over into the hellfire, he will be there forever and ever. And the ayah that speaks about the bridge, Surah 19 verse 71. Allah said that every single human being will have to pass over the hellfire. Surah 19 verse 71. That ayah, that every human being will have to pass over the hellfire, Allah is talking about the bridge which is placed over the hellfire. It's called the Sirat. وَإِن مِّنكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا كَانَ عَلَى رَبِّكَ حَتْمًا مَقْدِيًّا. There is not one of you but will pass over it, the hell. This is with your Lord a decree which must be accomplished. The tafsir of the ayah is that everybody will have to pass over the hellfire, and the bridge will take them over the hellfire. And the bridge is called the Sirat. I don't think there are any questions. I close the door. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Sheikh, I have a question. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. I don't see any questions on the board. What is your question? I can't see any question. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. If a man has 4 wives, but in Jannah men will have allowed 2 wives, how is it determined who will be his wives in Jannah? The men who didn't die as shuhada. The men who didn't die as shuhada, they will have 2 wives, and those who die as shuhada, they will have 72 virgins. And the person with 4 wives in the dunya, and he will be with the wives who treated him the best, and the others will be married to the virgin men of paradise. He'll be with the ones who treated him the best, and the others will be with the virgin men of paradise. Sometimes a man has 4 wives, and 2 of his wives might divorce him and move on. In that case, these women will be with the last husband they were married to. If a woman was married to different husbands, she divorced one and married the next, divorced one and then married the next. In the hereafter, she will be with the last man she got married to. Can you find the hadith authentic 5 in which a woman will be with the last husband she got married to? Was the dars recorded? Somebody is asking me, did anybody record the dars? Because they came late. Authentic Tawhid 5. Let's hope the dars was recorded. On the authority of Sila, that Hudayfa, radiallahu anhu, that he said to his wife, if you want to be my wife in paradise, he said to his wife, if you want to be my wife in paradise, do not marry anyone after I die, for in paradise a woman will be with the last of her husbands in this world. This is why Allah Allah forbade the wives of the Prophet to marry anyone after he died because they will be his wives in paradise. Well, that's what I learned from my sheikhs. A woman will be with the last husband she married. On the authority of Abu Darda, I heard the Messenger of Allah say, any woman whose husband dies and she marries someone after him, she will be with the last of her husband. Mu'jam al-Awsat by At-Tabarani. Well, that's what I learned from my sheikhs. The woman will be, if the woman got married to another husband and moved on, she married 2-3 times to different husbands, in paradise she will be with the last man she married. So even though a man might have 4 wives, maybe 2 of his wives will move on. Those who move on and marry another man, she will be with the last husband she married to in paradise. And because of that, it was haram for the wives of the Prophet to move on and marry somebody else, because they will be his wives in paradise, not just the dunya but also in paradise. And don't forget, one of the Sahabas wanted to marry Aisha, and Allah revealed Surah Ahzab verse 53, don't marry the wives of the Prophet after he dies. Surah Ahzab verse 53. The verse is a very long verse. Allah made haram for the Sahabas to marry the wife of the Prophet. A Sahaba had his eyes on Aisha. He said, when the Prophet died, Aisha will be mine. And even though the Prophet knew that he said it, the Prophet didn't rebuke him for it, because he was a very good Sahaba. I think his name is Talha ibn Ubaidullah. And it is not right for you that you should annoy Allah's Messenger, nor that you should ever marry his wives after him. Verily with Allah, that shall be an enormity, a huge sin, because you are going to marry your mother. The wives are mothers of the believers. How can you marry your own mother? So with Allah, that's an enormity. Kana inda Allah azima. Surah Ahzab verse 53. Allah made it haram to marry the wives of the Prophet after he dies. Authentic fibers in here. The name of the Sahaba, Talha ibn Ubaidullah, he wanted to marry Aisha after the death of the Prophet. He liked Aisha, and the Shiites, they use it against his character. What kind of a Sahaba is that? He had his eyes on Aisha. The Shiites, they grab this hadith. What the Shiites do, they believe in some hadith and reject faith in some hadith. If the hadith is if they think they can use the hadith to assassinate the character of the Sahaba, they will believe in the hadith. If the hadith is praising the Sahaba, they reject the hadith. And that is the Shiites. The reason wives of the Prophet after him is because the people would have wanted to marry the Prophet wives. There would be a rush to marry the wives of the Prophet. A huge rush, because these were the best of women. They were groomed by the Prophet to be the most pious of women. So can you imagine when the Prophet died, there would be a rush for Zainab bin Jahsh because she was very, very pretty. There will be a rush for Aisha. There will be a rush for Hafsa, the daughter of Umar. That's why Allah had to reveal the ayah, because these were the best of women. So there will be a rush to marry them. But you can't marry your mother, they are the mothers of the believers. Not only was Zainab bin Jahsh very beautiful, she was very, very pious. When Aisha was slandered, she was accused of having an affair. The Prophet approached Zainab bin Jahsh and said, what's your opinion about Aisha? She said, today I will protect my eyes and my tongue. I don't know anything about Aisha except good things. So even though Aisha was her co-wife, and Aisha said she was my biggest rival among the wives because of her beauty, and she was a cousin of the Prophet. Even though she was the biggest rival of Aisha, still she did not sink Aisha. What Aisha said about Zainab bin Jahsh, because of her taqwa, she was saved, so she was not among those who were destroyed. Subhanallah. Aisha said, because of her taqwa, she was saved. Her taqwa saved her. So she was not among those who were destroyed. The Arabic word taqwa is from the root word waqqa. That is the root word for taqwa, waqqa. And it means what? To protect. Waqa means to protect. So when you have taqwa, you are protected and you are safeguarded. She did not sink her co-wife and take sides with the munafiqeen to slander her. She said, today I protect my ears, my tongue and my ears. I don't know anything about Aisha except good things. Can you find the hadith where Zainab bin Jahsh said, today I will protect my tongue and my ears. I don't know anything about Aisha except good things. And Aisha said about Zainab bin Jahsh, she was my biggest rival among the wives of the Prophet because of her beauty. And she was young as well. Even though she was my biggest rival, she did not take sides with the munafiqeen to slander me. Aisha said because of her taqwa, she was saved, so she was not among those who were destroyed. The women of today, they need to study the lives of the wives of the Prophet to learn taqwa. They need to be taught what is taqwa. So we need to do a series about the wives of the Prophet. Aisha further said, Allah's Apostle also asked Zainab bin Jahsh about my case. He said, O Zainab, what have you seen? She replied, O Allah's Apostle, I protect my hearing and my sight, subhanallah, by refraining from telling lies. Look at her taqwa. Look at her taqwa. I protect my hearing and my sight from telling lies. I know nothing but good about Aisha. So even though Aisha was her co-wife and there was rivalry between them, still she did not sink her co-wife. I know nothing but good about Aisha. Of all the wives of Allah's Apostle, it was Zainab who aspired to receive from him the same favor as I used to receive. Yet Allah saved her from telling lies because of her taqwa. Listen to what Aisha said. Because of her taqwa, she was saved. But her sister Hamna kept on fighting on her behalf, so she was destroyed, as were those who invented and spread the slander. So her sister Hamna bin Jahsh was among those who slandered Aisha, and she was given 80 lashes. But Zainab bin Jahsh was not among those who were destroyed because of her taqwa. I think I've spoken enough for this morning. I'll now go. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. I can't see any more questions on the screen. In the USA, some wives went to the Eid party at the park, and fist fight broke out on Eid day in front of a big crowd of people. That was in the USA. Co-wives had a fist fight at Eid in front of hundreds of people. So you have some people who come into Islam, but they are still jahil, and they bring jahiliyyah over into Islam. How can you go to Eid at the park in front of hundreds of people and fist fight broke out between co-wives, one accusing the other of taking her nights? How can you have a fist fight if you have dirty linens? You don't wash your dirty linens in public. That's disgraceful. You are not allowed to come into Islam and bring your jahiliyyah over into Islam. Leave your jahiliyyah behind, because Allah said, Ya ladina amanu udkhulu fis silmi kaffa. Or you believe, enter into Islam wholeheartedly. Baqarah 208. Or you believe, enter into Islam wholeheartedly. Yeah, we need to do a series about the wives of the Prophet, because the sisters, especially those who are living in Dar Harb, they need to learn how to be proper Muslim women. They need to learn how to be wives and proper Muslim women. They need to study the lives of the role models, the wives of the Prophet, to learn taqwa. Because many of them are still in jahiliyyah, they are still jahil. And the divorce among them is very, very high. In the UK, I've met women who've been married 5 times. I've seen sisters in the UK, they got married 5 times. Why the divorce is high? Because they're still jahil. They're still in jahiliyyah. And they don't mind getting married 5 times because they are having fun. As far as they are concerned, they are tasting. They don't mind getting married 5 times because as far as they are concerned, they are having fun. They are coming from jahiliyyah, and they were promiscuous in jahiliyyah, and they carry on the same promiscuity in Islam. I've seen sisters got married 5 times in London, and it doesn't affect them psychologically because they are having fun. I'll see you tonight, inshallah ta'ala. I will now yield the mic. Subhanakallah. The mic is free.